Hi, everyone. Welcome to YHB TV, your handmade business television, a weekly series dedicated to helping you navigate all things #maker life. Isaac, are you? #maker life. I am Sharon Fain, along with my crafty co-conspirator, Isaac Watson, and we are the directors of Academy of Handmade, a supportive community for makers. Each week we tackle a topic that we think needs to get deeper into what's really going on in your business. And so this month we've been talking about evolution versus revolution. And today we are talking about the revolution of taking your business seriously. So pretty excited about that. If you have any questions about this topic, you can go ahead and ask them in the ask a question area below, or go ahead and type it in the chat. It's easier if you do the ask a question, but if you have a question in the chat and you forget about it, don't worry, we'll try to get to it as well too. If you missed us last week, oh, and there's also a poll. Go in there and do a poll, especially if you've already taken the quiz. That's a good place to start. And then let us know where you are at in your business and where you think you're going. So the quiz, if you don't know about it, is at academyofhandmade.com/quiz. And it's all about figuring out your maker business type and the type that you would like to become. So yeah, you don't have to do it right now, but just if you know it off the top of your head, if not, take a guess. And take the poll. If you missed us last week, the replay is available. We talked with the amazing Ariane folks of AO Lydia, and we discussed how to evolve in your business, particularly the transformative work of rebranding. And so that is up above here. All the replays are up above, and if you just pull down, you'll see them all, but just don't click on them yet. Otherwise, it will take you away from this program. So do that after the show. What am I missing, Isaac?
I think you covered it. Introduce yourself in the chat and take the quiz later. How are you, Sharon?
Good. I'm pretty good. It is a nice sunny day here in Los Angeles, so I cannot complain.
I saw a sliver of blue sky earlier here in Portland. And I was like, what is that? I haven't seen that for 3 months. What's going on?
Yeah, that's like basically a sunny day in Portland right now in the winter.
Mm-hmm. We managed to escape the rain for a dog walk right after lunch, which was fantastic. But I'm also on cloud 9 because I just got some great news that a contract for a project I was working on got approved. So I'm feeling pretty good.
Awesome. So if you guys, while you guys are coming in and want to introduce yourselves, that would be great. I did want to give a program note that basically, so we do this every week. We are here every Thursday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. But next month, we're going to take a hiatus. And that's because instead of our YHB TV series, we are going to do our Jumpstart sessions instead, which, if you don't know, Jumpstart Your Handmade Business is our signature program. Also the quiz, which we talk about on and on, is related to that. So Jumpstart sessions are going to be here instead, which you can join. It is a paid program. Each week we are going to cover a different topic about basically kind of going under the hood of your business and tinkering around in there. We're pretty excited about it. It's part of our Jumpstart program, but you do not have to be in our Jumpstart program to do it. So if that makes sense. So if you just want to watch the sessions, if you're like, I'm not sure about Jumpstart, go ahead and do the sessions. It's going to be $75 early bird. So go ahead, do that. And if you decide while doing it, you're like, yes, I would like all of the curriculum that goes with this, all of the other bonuses that kind of basically come with it, you can go ahead and we'll give you a $75 credit to Jumpstart. Yeah, so did I cover everything there, Isaac?
Yeah, the only thing I was going to mention is that we have a podcast as well if anybody's doing this for the first time.
Oh, I can't, you went like in and out weirdly.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
So We have a podcast for those of us who are new to Academy of Handmade. It is on slight hiatus right now, but we just published a bonus episode recapping a webinar all about our quiz and the different maker business types that are there. So you can go check that out on iTunes or wherever you normally find your podcasts. And then we will be back in just 2 weeks with the first episode of season 2 of the podcast. It's going to be very exciting.
Yes. If you have taken the maker business type quiz, go ahead and definitely listen to that podcast. It's going to inform you on a lot about sort of like our signature program and what we're doing with it. So, yeah. Are we ready to get started?
I think so.
It's a little weird this week not having a guest. And so us just kind of like diving in and talking with each other. And I think both of us have our brains a little bit fried because of all of the spreadsheets that we've been creating for Jumpstart.
It's true. We have been working so hard on this, I have to say. It's it always seems like, oh, we'll just do a little revamp of the program, and then it turns into significantly more. But yeah, so forgive us if we're a little incoherent. But let's get started. Let's talk about the revolution of taking yourself seriously in your business. So as we were thinking about this particular topic, obviously it's fitting given that it's January. Everybody is talking about New Year's resolutions or intentions for the year, what have you. And we've talked about this a little bit in past episodes this month. But for me, it comes down to this idea of making that leap or that revolutionary moment where you start taking yourself seriously in your business. And for me, that means more than just making products. It's really about making a business. And for those of you who have taken the business type quiz in the past, are already, and for those of you who are about to, so our 4 business types are hobby, jobby, sustainable, and career. And it's really, in a lot of ways, the difference between a hobby or a jobby business and a sustainable or a career business. So jobbies can kind of have some aspects of taking yourself seriously in your business, but in a lot of ways, they're still reactive to whims and outside factors and influences. So I see this as being able to look at your business as a business and not just something that you do accidentally because you make stuff and you sell it online.
Yeah, totally. And definitely, I think that's a key delineation. It's like, if you're in a hobby or a jobby, the pressure and the dedication to your business is not the same. And it's not necessarily that that's bad or wrong or that can't be a legitimate option for you. It's more just like the seriousness of purpose of your business is kind of just not there. So if any of you guys have thoughts too on when you've taken yourself more seriously. Oh my gosh, I'm so tongue-tied today. Self more seriously in your business, let us know in the chat too, because I think we're super interested in hearing the difference if you felt like you've taken yourself more seriously and sort of like the change that happened. But one of the things that I think about when you do take yourself more seriously in business is that and I don't know if this says the same thing with you, Isaac, because I'm sure there are points where you've had different, I mean, we've both sort of like run multiple businesses, and there are times when they have been kind of hobby and jobby. And then there was a seriousness of purpose that came when we were like, no, this is going to be a career or like a sustainable side hustle. You know, it's going to be something that's more than just this thing I tinker around with every now and then, or don't really have a stake in how it turns out, I guess, which is kind of what I would think about is, you know, is the main delineation with what we would call a jobby. And so I think those other two are much more casual in nature, and you just approach your work differently when there is things that are on the line, you know, that you have to do that. And so I think I don't know if you have any remembrances, but I remember for me is when I decided, okay, I want to be all in on the Academy of Handmade. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm just really not going to bother with doing any of the PR work that I've been trying to do too. That it had gotten to that point where I felt like, okay, this is something that can provide for me, and this is something I want to do and want to grow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if
Yeah.
you have those points in your businesses too.
I do. There are two things I think of. So the first is kind of an opposite situation. Back when I had my handmade business, so many years ago, for those of you who don't already know this about me, but I had a business making upcycled jewelry out of old camera parts. And it was very much a hobby business. It was a spare time kind of thing. I worked full time. My workshop was at my parents' house in their garage. It was a very as I could do it kind of thing. And there came a point I ran that business for about 3 years. I should say I ran that business. I mean, I kind of did that business for 3 years, doing shows and selling on Etsy and everything. And I got to a point where I hit, I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but there was kind of this threshold moment for me where I thought, you know what, I was getting busy enough that I was spending nearly every weekend at my parents' in my workshop, or at my workbench, I should say, making the jewelry. But I was sacrificing a lot of other things, and there were a lot of things I didn't have time for because I was working full time. And that was the other thing, is I had become so involved with the maker community that I wanted to start this program to help other makers be better at their businesses. And it came to a point where I said, okay, well, if like I need to take one of these things seriously, but that means doing so means that I can't take the other seriously. So that led to the decision to actually pack up my own handmade business so I could focus on the program I wanted to start. So that was kind of an opposite situation where I realized I was at this turning point where I either needed to go all in on it and make it my primary thing, or I needed to back away and let it go. On the flip side, more recently, so I started doing, several years ago, I started doing events and helping, working with a team of people to put on a conference in Portland every year. And it was kind of this like regular thing that I did, but it wasn't my primary gig. And just in the last year and a half or so, I realized that was something I wanted to pursue more professionally. And so it's been a major transition point for me to think about this as a business, not just something I do in addition to everything else that I do. So I'm thinking a little bit longer term about what my goals are for the business, and thinking forward about what kind of clients I can attract, and how I can find them and secure those contracts, and how do I price myself as a service oriented business. All that kind of stuff is way more detailed and complicated than just working with a group of people that have become my friends on an event every summer.
I was going to say, going back to that, I think there's this weird idea that like if you start a business, you're kind of oddly married to it for the rest of your life. And I think because when you start a business, it's so easily to get identified with that business, especially if that business has your name or, is part of like a passion or something that you're known for. And I think it becomes then very hard for people to like, I don't want to say regress, because regress isn't the right word, but it's like to put it on hold or to make it less than the peak of what it was before. And I think it can be hard in your own head to feel like there's not some weird shame of like giving up or whatever on it, but it's more just like nobody really expects any of us to like be in one business our entire life. Like that's not what happens with 9-to-5 jobs, that you would expect you to just always be involved with that. And so people change jobs, they change industries all the time. And so that, this is obviously different than just like people that are like habitual, startup people. But it's like if your interests change, if your life changes, you have a kid, you get married, you move, all of these things can like upend what your goals of your business are. And that's totally okay that they're not static. So
exactly. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about some of these things that do cause us to take our business more seriously. So I talked about a few of them in my own personal experiences, and I think you experienced them as well, Sharon. But I think there's a difference between the kind of external things that can influence this shift. There's also some internal things. And I would love to know, I was going to be the mean teacher that calls on somebody in class, because I feel like Amanda, because I know her so well and I've known her for a long time, probably has some examples I'm hoping she'd be willing to share. I'm just going to put that out there, Amanda. If you want to talk about that moment where you made that transition, I'm thinking in particular of going into your moving out of your house and into a studio space. Please feel free to comment in the chat. But even if you don't, that's okay. But
or we can bring you up on screen.
Or we could bring you up on screen. We could be really mean. This is what happens when we don't have a guest. We get to pick on our audience. But I think internally there can be kind of this epiphany and mindset shift, and that's kind of what I went through with my maker business. Was this internal epiphany that, oh, I need to get serious about this, or I need to move on, because I can't do all these things half-assed as we go. I need to be able to focus to make sure it works. And that's kind of that internal mindset shift that happens. From an external standpoint, there are some advantages to making these shifts. And that could be financial dependency on the business instead of on another job. I knew that if I was going to shift into focusing on my business, my handmade business as a primary thing, I was going to need to like go all in to make sure that could sustain me, because that probably meant I couldn't work full time. It probably meant that I couldn't pursue this program that I wanted to do. And so that can work to your benefit, or it can actually put a lot of pressure on you to do that as well. Okay,
well,
so
I was going to say, just really quickly, I think a lot of people, that the decision to take their business seriously also comes because of external factors, like somebody lost their job or whatever. Like there's something where that it really causes you that you're like, okay, and now I'm going to decide to take this seriously. And then sometimes, it's people just feeling like, okay, I've now decided that this is how it's going to be, just because of whatever in life, versus I think, where you kind of feel the heat that you need to like, or just even time and energy too. So.
Great. So thank you, Amanda, for sharing. So Amanda says, I think I've always wanted my biz to be a career since day one. It is named after bread and butter. Her business name is Bread and Badger. But it was definitely legitimized when we decided to move into a studio out of our house. We are going through an intense rebrand right now because even though I've always thought seriously about it, I'm learning that I've still been treating it like a handmade hobby a lot of the time. I want our site to look a lot more serious than it currently looks to customers. That's really interesting, Amanda. And one thing that I was going to add that relates to that is that the transition from being a maker or having a handmade hobby into owning a business can be very difficult. And I think it's one thing that can scare a lot of makers out of it. It's like, whoa, I don't want to run a business. I don't want to be a business owner per se, or a small business owner. I just want to make things. And so there's this kind of reconciliation that needs to happen between where you find the enjoyment out of your work and how willing you are to actually do the nitty gritty business stuff. And so it actually reminds me, so when I was editing the podcast from our Just My Type webinar, that this bonus podcast that just came out the other day, one of the questions that people asked about the different business types was, can you be a career business owner and still keep your creative mojo? And the answer is yes, you can. There are ways to do it, and there are plenty of example businesses out there, but it is not a straightforward or an easy process. It's definitely something you have to work at.
I was going to say that also sort of reminds me of what we talked about last week with Ariane. And sorry, it all of a sudden just weirdly froze on me because I was fishing for the link to the bonus ode, which is now in the chat. I think that Ariane mentioned that too, is like all of a sudden you're like, oh, you kind of shy away from certain things because you have it in your mind that you won't like them or whatever. And actually, it is something that you do like, and is something that you're like, oh, actually, this is not as bad as I thought it was going to be. But also along that, like, I think she mentioned her website and not feeling like it was reflective of how seriously they took their business, like externally to people. And I think that's another huge thing that happens when you have this mindset shift, is that all of a sudden you'll see all of the things that you're like, oh gosh, this is bad. This is not how I want it. This is not going to make me more money. This is whatever it is. Like, you're going to just see all the problems in your business all of a sudden, and you're going to want to weirdly undertake it all at the same time. And you just can't do that. You sort of have to prioritize what needs to happen. Yeah. Everything, Amanda says, everything on my site is like that, burn it down. Yeah. And it just is like, it feels so weird and embarrassing all of a sudden, but you also have to realize like that's fine for right now sometimes. And like this in Jumpstart, and that unless you are able to like do this serious infusion of cash or have this serious infusion of time, which usually you don't magically all of a sudden have a lot of time, unless maybe you just quit a job, and so maybe you do now, which usually means you don't have a lot of money then. One of those two infusions of cash or time is the only way that you would be able to scale that, do that quickly. And it's fine if you don't, but just, you have to kind of be a little bit uncomfortable with that transition. And I think it's the transition of anyone who does anything creative, where all of a sudden you look back and you're just embarrassed of anything that you did before. That like when you start out, it's that whole Ira Glass talk about being a beginner, and that your work just is going to suck sometime. It's not going to be your best. You're going to think like, this is some really good stuff here. And then later on you're like cringing that you're like, oh, I put that out. Like, people paid me for that. I don't even want to talk about it, because you've evolved so much. And that just shows that you're growing as a person, and that is not necessarily reflective of everything in your business is trash. You've just you're evolving, which is great. Your business just has not caught up with your brain.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of things, there's a lot of unknowns about running a business. I mean, like Amanda was saying, it never occurred to me I'd need to learn how to be a manager, but I have an employee, and so suddenly I need some management skills. It's not just all friends and unicorns and puppies all the time. But I guess all this to say that you shouldn't be afraid of taking yourself seriously in business. It can mean there's some learning curves. There's process along the way. It's not an easy thing, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't, and that doesn't mean that you can't make something really great for yourself through the process. So I think I was also thinking about another podcast episode from December when I interviewed Jen Crow about the process. She's gone through, I think, 3 full-on rebrands of her business. And she was talking a little bit about the stories we tell ourselves in our business and the things that we believe without really looking closely at them. And she talked about how she went through this whole process of doing these trade shows to find wholesale accounts, and they started out great, and then she tried to do one on her own, and it wasn't successful. And she told herself this story that she needs to not focus on wholesale. She needs to focus on selling directly to her customers. But then as she went through her most recent rebrand, she started re-examining her assumptions about herself and about her business and her skills, and realized that actually she could tackle retail just with a different approach than going to big trade shows and spending insane amounts of money on a booth and things like that. And so she's been able to tackle that, to take wholesale accounts seriously in a way that works for her with her business, and still allows her that control. So I thought that seemed relevant as well.
If you hear a song in the background, just know that it's an ice cream truck parked outside our building and staying there, I guess.
This is like the hidden advantage of living in the Northwest, is that you don't run into that as much because we're all closed up and the shades are drawn because it's dark and gray and disgusting. And nobody wants to go outside.
Welcome to living in a sunny metropolis. Just have turkey in the straw in my head now. What was I gonna say? Yeah, but I mean, I totally second that. And there's definitely there's so much of this that is just things we've told ourselves in our brain that this or that is what our business is. And then one day, all of a sudden, you kind of like look around the problem instead of looking at the problem, or, and you're like, oh man, that actually is something that I can do, that is possible. But we've just told ourselves like so many things, like this is just how it has to be, or I did it this way this one time. I did a craft show, therefore craft shows, and it wasn't good, therefore all craft shows will never be good. And it's like, okay.
Yeah. So I wanted to revisit the poll briefly. Yeah. So we only had a couple of people participate, but they both said that they are targeting career business types for the future, which I think is like, if you are going after a career business, that is where it's most critical to take yourself seriously in your business and to take your business seriously, because there's no other way to build a career type business that is a primary source of income, that is really driving. In a lot of ways, we talk about a career business type as being a legacy business, as something that you create for your family, or for, somehow it contributes to a community, or is this kind of bigger thing than just this little old business. And so anybody that's going after a career business is really going to need to work through that process of taking things seriously, and finding a way to make that balance between creative mojo and running a business work, whether that's bringing on a business partner, or outsource, or hiring out the crappy parts of running a business, things like that.
Totally. So basically all of us talk about taking your business seriously, and like all of these mindset shifts, and kind of jumping from one end of sort of casually doing your business to doing it in a more focused fashion. This is basically the crux of the Jumpstart Your Handmade Business program. So I think we've basically revamped this entire program, enhanced it. We have all of these worksheets. We have spreadsheets that will help you in your business, and
the spreadsheets are amazing.
As well as and it's just such a good place to play too. I feel like these are spreadsheets we want you to feel like you can explore with, and not that it's like a commitment to serious numbers in there that you will live and die by. It's just a place to start using math and accounting for all of the variables in a business. My dog is now barking at things. But that you can start to just play around in your business and imagine, like, what if I did this, and what would happen, and where do I want to go, and how does this fit into it, and actually maybe I need to do more work than I thought I needed to do, or I don't need to do as much work. And that's one of the great things about this, is that I think it's for anyone who's feeling stuck in their business, who feels like they're not really sure what to do next. aren't really sure what the big picture looks like, or where to go. And it's designed for sort of anyone in any walk of their business. But I think one of the things is that like it's very revelatory, I think, if you're new in your business. But if you've kind of been doing this for a little bit and you're like, oh, where does this go next? I don't know what I want out of this. I think a lot of it will also affirm to you that you're probably know more than you do. But also I think will be like, oh, I really hadn't thought of that. So I think the people who have kind of already been doing this for a bit, but maybe have just sort of like hit a wall all of a sudden, I think you're going to get a lot out of it in terms of some self-awareness that I think can be hard to get when you're at a certain point in your business, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So the button below gives you the page that tells you more about Jumpstart, and it also on that page has the link to the Jumpstart sessions where you can just take those if you just want to dive in and explore those without committing to the entire curriculum. So
awesome.
Is that everything, Isaac?
I think so. The only other thing, so if anybody has questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat or in the Ask a Question area. The other thing I was going to add is if anybody wants to dive a little bit deeper into the maker business types with me, I will be joining Ariane folks in the Facebook group for Lydia, which is called the Shipshape Collective. I'll be with her next Wednesday, January 31st at 9 a.m. Pacific for a little 30-minute broadcast, kind of like this one, where we're taking a little bit closer look at the different maker business types and doing that. And like we said before, check out the bonus episode for an even deeper look. I think it's about 50 minutes long for the webinar that we did last year, all about the different business types. So I think that's it. Special shout out to Amanda for being a trooper and contributing when she was called on by the mean teacher. It was great to have your perspective. I really appreciate it. And I think that's it. I don't see any questions, which always makes me skeptical, but happy.
We will see you back here next week for the Jumpstart sessions. If you want to just get a glimpse of like what's going on in it, it's the program. The early bird is $75. We'll send out an email with the coupon code for that, so you can get the discount. But basically, it's going to give you a good overview of the curriculum and provide you with a lot of information, plus being able to interact with us on the curriculum, but without having to go fully into it if you're not sure if it's worth it for you.
It's like dipping a toe in the Jumpstart water.
Yes.
So you can either get scared away or commit.
Well, and even just from that, you might come away with like, oh, like I actually know more than I thought I did. And honestly, that is a thing that I feel like we want to give you, is for you to affirm like your knowledge sometimes. But it's hard to do that until you've actually like taken a step back to really evaluate and look at things and sort of like test what you know with what, you know, is actually proven stuff that helps people. So.
For sure.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for all of this. Again, academyofhandmade.com/quiz if you are wanting to know your maker business type. And button below, Jumpstart Your Handmade Business. The new curriculum is going to be out starting tomorrow. So get on that. We'll update. You can buy it now. We'll give you the update as soon as it's ready. So. Thank you guys so much.
Have a good one.
I have to hit the end broadcast button. Bye, everyone.